Okay. Thank you very much, Casey.
Oh, sorry, it just went back.
Okay. If you want to fiddle with it at all, you would go to your Start Video button, and there's a small up arrow, and you would choose Video Settings.
Okay.
Once you're in Video Settings, you just scroll down to the checkbox that says Hide Non-Video Participants, and you should have it unchecked.
It is unchecked.
Oh, nuts. Okay.
As long as it keeps coming back, then I think I'll be okay. That's so weird.
If it makes you feel any better, I'm seeing it too.
Okay. I feel like I'm on a roller coaster.
But the chat doesn't disappear. That's kind of nice.
Alrighty, just a quick check-in on who we have on the meeting so far. We have trustees Holland, Avgaris, Decker, Lorenzen, Mercer, Old Person, Sturbis, Vogel, and Wake. And we have student trustee Odegaard. And our legal counsel. We are already recording the meeting and the live stream has started. Okay, Trustee Odegaard, I see your note and I will make sure they get admitted as soon as I see them try to join.
Thank you.
Yes, sir. We're about 1 minute before 6. Okay, we're at 6 o'clock. We are currently waiting on Trustee McDonald and Trustee Smith. I'll mute myself and leave it to Chair Holland for when you want to start the meeting.
Well, I'll call this meeting to order then because I see that we have a quorum. So the first thing I'll do is welcome everyone to the second meeting in May, our monthly meeting. And I will take roll. I am here. Trustee Abgaris, if I'm saying your name right, I think.
Yes, I am here.
Okay. Trustee Decker?
Here.
Trustee Lorenzen?
Here.
Trustee McDonald? I think we're waiting on her. Trustee Mercer?
Here.
Trustee Oldperson?
Here.
Trustee Smith? I think we're waiting on him as well. Trustee Sturbis?
Here.
Trustee Vogel?
Here.
And Trustee Wake.
Present.
And so we'll move on to item number 2, which is the Pledge of Allegiance. If Superintendent Watson, you don't mind saying the pledge, and I think Lenora has a flag that we can view. And so if everyone would stand for the pledge.
Pledge allegiance to the flag, United States of America, to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you. And now we move on to item number 3, which is to review, revise, and approve the agenda. Are there any, requests to modify the agenda in any fashion? Seeing no hands go up or no oral requests, then we'll move on to item number 4A, which is to approve the meetings from the regular meeting from April 28th, 2020. First, are there any modifications that anyone would like to make to the minutes that are in the packet? Seeing no hands raised or any comments in chat, then is there a motion to approve the minutes from the April 28th board meeting? Let me check. I see there's a second, so let me go up and figure out. So Trustee Wake has moved to approve the minutes of April 28th, seconded by Trustee Oldperson. All those in favor of approving the minutes, please type in yes or Y, and all those not in favor, please type in N or no.
Vogel is a yes.
Thanks, Trustee Vogel. And that appears to be unanimous as to all trustees currently present. Then we move on to 4B, which is the special meeting from May 1st. First of all, are there any modifications anyone would like to make to those minutes? Not seeing any hands go up. Let me just scroll down. So is there a motion to approve the minutes from the special meeting of May 1st? I'll just check in. Trustee Wake has moved to approve the minutes of May 1st, seconded by Trustee Oldperson. All trustees in favor of approving those minutes, please indicate by typing in yes or saying yes if you want to unmute or are on the phone.
Vogel is a yes.
Thank you. Let me double check. And that appears to be unanimous as to all trustees present. Now we move on to public comment regarding non-agenda items. We ask anyone who wants to make public comment on a non-agenda item to limit their comments to 3 minutes. And if you can state your first and last name before you begin your comments. And if you have an unusual spelling of your name, could you spell that part of your name, whether first or last? And if you represent an organization, please identify which organization, and the method by which to be recognized is either to raise your blue hand or unmute and ask to make public comment. And I'll ask for Hatton's assistance in trying to see if anyone's unmuting, and I will be looking for blue hands raised on any of the guests who are here. I think we have 2 pages of gallery view, correct?
We do, and just a reminder to the guests, if you want to raise your hand, you simply click on the participants icon on the bottom, And you'll see a menu open up, and at the bottom of that menu, you would choose to raise your hand.
And I'm not seeing any.
We do have one hand from Casey Ballou.
Okay, Casey, go ahead and make your comments. Thank you.
Well, you called for a blue hand to come up, so obviously you were talking directly to me.
Very clever.
Yeah, I try. I'm Casey Ballou. I'm a middle school teacher and the Missoula Education Association president. And I'm actually here not to just give comment, but to ask for your help. We want to make sure that Missoula knows and understands that school buildings may be closed, but that school is still in session. Parents and students are still working hard. They're logging in, they're meeting virtually, they're learning, experimenting, reading, growing their knowledge and understanding of important concepts. And staff members are also still hard at work. We're in and out of the buildings. We're planning, we're meeting virtually, not so much in person these days. We're designing lessons, we're closing down classrooms, we're taking online courses to make ourselves better teachers. We're working with our principals and our staffs to make plans for the coming weeks and the months past summer. We're giving feedbacks to students on work that they've completed. We're checking in on students and families to make sure that they're okay. We're working, we're growing. Like you do with these school board meetings, we're making adjustments and adapting and overcoming challenges, and we're continuing through the last day of school in June. So I know we all are looking forward to summer break, but I've had some teachers with some hurt feelings. We know that teachers have been seen out and about like during daylight hours, which are growing at this point in time. But if you see a teacher running around out enjoying the sun, know that maybe they've earned that break. We've had teachers who have flexed their hours a little bit. They've been up at the crazy hour of 5:30 in the morning, some of them, to get work done while their house is still quiet. I have some teachers who are answering emails, which I should not be sending at 10:30 and 11 at night. We have teachers who are, on their screens a lot of the time. So if you see them, just know that they're taking that well-earned break. Schools may be closed, but we're still hard at work. And I know you guys are too. So if you'd help us spread that message, we would definitely appreciate it. It's nice to see you all here. Thanks.
Thank you for those public comments. Does anyone else want to make public comment? I'm looking for hands raised or a message in chat. I don't see any. So now there is no written correspondence. So 6A is the Health Insurance Trust Fund Report. It's the Routine Health Insurance Trust Fund Report for the month of April 2020, found on page 25. And then we move to B, announcements from Dr. Watson.
All right. Thank you, Chair Holland. And I think what I'll do is, if Isaac doesn't mind, I'm going to start my report this evening with deferring to Isaac. Isaac is, as you're well aware, one of our graduating seniors, and he's an outgoing student trustee, and I know he has some important announcements to make. Thanks, Isaac.
Yeah, thank you. I just wanted to share with you guys that we have 2 student trustees for Sentinel this year. They are Malone Ingram and Daisy Kalina. You guys can see them on there, I think. And normally I'd announce this at the last meeting, but due to coronavirus stuff, we weren't able to get it done as fast. So I just wanted to introduce you guys to them. Thanks.
So thank you, Isaac, and welcome to Malone and Daisy. We look forward to working with you this coming school year. Just a couple other announcements. So later on in the agenda, I'll be discussing the final graduation plans that were submitted to the health department and were approved by the health department. And so I've got some updates on that. But one thing that traditionally happens at graduation is we have a few trustees attend the ceremonies. As you're all well aware, because we've been talking about these ceremonies now for a couple weeks, we're being held to some pretty low numbers in terms of participation. In fact, I was commenting to Hatton and Tracy today that the health department has stressed to me that anyone in attendance should either be a graduate or a guest or have some sort of job at the ceremony. So we really have to limit the number of people that are at the ceremonies due to the crowd size restrictions. So one of the things that I'll ask is that we have no more than 2 trustees at any ceremony. And we've actually got 5 ceremonies. So what I'm going to do is give you the dates right now at this part of the meeting, and then when I get to the update part later on in the meeting, then maybe you'll have enough time to look at your calendar and see if those dates work for you. And if you want to volunteer for one of these, you're certainly welcome to. So Sealy Lake High School, May 31st at 1 o'clock. That one is actually going to be fairly small. So if we only had 1 trustee, that would be fine too. But our first one is Sealy Lake High School, May 31st at 1 o'clock, and that's up in Sealy. We'd probably put together a carpool to get up there, but May 31st, 1 o'clock. Willard is June 4th at 4 p.m. in the afternoon. Hellgate High School is June 5th at 9. Sentinel High School is June 5th at noon. And Big Sky is June 5th at 3. So once again, Willard is the 4th, which is a Thursday at 4. Hellgate is on Friday morning at 9, June 5th. Sentinel is at noon, and Big Sky is at 3. If you're able to attend, basically what you would be doing is you'd be up on stage with myself and the school administration. There's not a whole lot for us to do. At one point during the ceremony, I will read a proclamation that just basically says that the students have achieved the standards required for graduation, and I'll present the class to the Board of Trustees as having met the requirements for graduation. And that's pretty much it. So we will just be standing there. Now, in a typical year, we would be shaking hands during the ceremony, but we won't be doing that this year. The diplomas will be distributed from a table. The students will walk across the stage and pick up the diploma, and we'll just be clapping for them, but not shaking any hands. So if you're interested, those are the dates, and I can tell you more about graduation during the updates later on in the agenda. And then if you want to think about it, we could sign up. If we could sign up this evening, that would really help me so I can get those names to the principals. That's all I have.
Thank you. And so as Superintendent Watson indicated, we'll be talking more about graduation later. So now we move on to 7, the consent agenda. There's one item, which is to approve revenue and expenditures report. Items are placed on the consent agenda when they're routine and perfunctory, and we see them on a regular basis. What that means is that there won't be discussion by the trustees, although we do take public comment. And so the first order of business is there a motion to approve the item on the consent agenda? Let me just look in chat. Trustee Lorenzen has moved. Is there a second? Seconded by Trustee Decker. And as I indicated, we don't have trustee discussion during consent agenda items, but is there any public comment? And again, I'll look for a raised hand or a microphone unmuting. Not seeing any. Then all trustees in favor of the motion to approve the item on the consent agenda, please indicate by typing in chat or saying yes, or typing yes into chat or saying yes verbally.
Vogel is a yes.
Thank you. It looks like it's unanimous. And has Trustee McDonald joined us now? I thought I saw a yes from her.
Yes, she has joined the meeting now.
Okay, so it is unanimous as to all trustees present, which includes now Trustee McDonald. And so then let me move on to 8A1, which is to approve the second reading of Board Policy 1120, Annual Organization Meeting of the Board of Trustees. And Pat, if you can remind us how you cleaned up this board policy, and we did review it for first reading, and it looks like there was no public comment that was received when it was posted for public comment.
Yes, thank you. So the main correction was to help this policy maintain consistency with state law, changing the time period from 50 days to 25 days.
Pat, you're not coming through very well. It's kind of hard to hear you.
Okay.
Pat, you may want to try turning off your video in case that helps your bandwidth so your audio can come through clearly.
Okay. Can you hear me now?
Better.
Better?
Yeah.
Okay. So the main point was to help make the policy consistent.
And we're losing you again. Sorry, Pat.
Okay. Yeah, so why don't I jump off and rejoin? Would that work?
It's hard to understand you. Sorry about that.
No
Sometimes
problem.
it helps me if I just speak right into the microphone on the side of my computer. It looks odd.
It could be a connection issue, Pat. You might want to jump off and jump back on.
Yeah, that's what I'm gonna do.
Let me.
I'll just let you know when I admit Pat back into the meeting.
Okay. And I was thinking that maybe I could do it for him, but I'll let him do it. And so we'll go ahead and move on to A2, which is to approve the second reading of the board policy 3417. And I see that we both have Megan Morris and Linda Simon at the virtual meeting. And so I didn't know if Megan or Linda wanted to make comments, but we did look at this. I think this is the third time because we had some recommendations that we sent back, and Megan, Linda, and other staff took a look at the suggestions made by board members. When we first looked at it, it came back for a first reading, and then that was approved and it was put out for public comment, and it appears that no public comment have been received. So I don't know if Megan or Linda want to make comments or just remind us that we're adopting this policy. It's been long in the works, actually, before everything started happening in February and such. So thank you for your hard work, both of you.
I can certainly say that I became involved after the initial board review of the policy. There were some concerns about some of the language and the definition of communicable disease under the law. And so I made recommendations to delete some language just for clarity purposes. And then I recall at the last meeting, for consistency purposes, there was a change just to make it clear that district was going to rely on the advice of public officials, and keeping that term broad to ensure that that covers the governor to local city and county health officials.
And anything else to add, Linda?
No, I have nothing to add. I think it's ready to go. So, yeah.
Any board members have any questions for either Megan, Dr. Watson, or Linda about the proposed policy? I'll look in chat to see if anyone's asking, and I don't see. I'll check the other screen. I don't see any hands raised. So seeing no questions, then the recommendation is that there is a motion made to adopt board policy 3417, which is titled Communicable Diseases. Is there such a motion? I'm just looking to see. Trustee Lorenzen has made such a motion, seconded by Trustee Oldperson. Is there any board discussion? Not seeing hands going up or anyone in chat. I do want to again say thank you so much for working on this, Megan and Linda. We know it took a bit of time, and it's ironically quite timely, even though I know that you were working on it even before we found ourselves in a pandemic. So thank you so much for this hard work. And with that, is there any public comment? I'm just checking chat. I don't see, let me check the second screen.
I don't see anybody with raised hands.
Okay, and I don't see anyone asking to speak in chat, the chat function. So with that, all trustees in favor of approving or the motion to adopt board policy 3417, please type in yes or Y into chat, or make a verbal commitment to either yes or no, so that we can know who you are and how you voted.
Vogel is a yes.
Thank you. I'm just, oh, there we go. I couldn't see Trustee McDonald, but she just voted. So it is unanimous as to all trustees present. And so thank you again for that work. We move on to 9A. Is Pat?
Chair Holland, Pat has rejoined the meeting.
Okay, Pat, do we want to return to A1 or 8A1 about the organizational meeting of the Board of Trustees? We'll see if the sound works better.
You bet. Can you guys hear me okay?
It's still a little fuzzy, but give it a try.
Okay. All right, so the modification to this policy or to make the policy consistent with state law regarding the terms, the length of time between the election and the organizational meeting. So it moved from 15 days to 25 days. So that's the main change, along with some consistent language with MCAT policy.
Any questions for Pat? We're not seeing any hands going up or microphones muted. So the recommendation is that there is a motion to adopt Board Policy 1120 titled Annual Organization Meeting of Board of Trustees. Is there such a motion? And I see there's a new message. It's moved by Trustee Wake, seconded by Trustee Lorenzen. Is there any board discussion? Seeing none, I will again thank Pat for working on this to make sure that our policies reflect better practices. So appreciate you taking the time to do this. And with that, is there any public comment? Seeing none, all trustees in favor of the motion to adopt Board Policy 1120, please indicate by typing in yes or saying yes.
Vogel is a yes.
Thank you. Count. And that is unanimous as to all trustees present. So thank you, Pat, for jumping back in on that. And then we move on to 9A1, which is the general fund update. And there's information only, and the information is found beginning on page 38. So Pat, if you want to let us know what we're looking at.
Oh, geez. Yeah, sorry. All right, can you hear me okay?
Yeah, this is much better. Thank you.
All right, so looking at page 39, there's a little more detail on this page and a couple things I was going to point out. So first, the certified salaries that are listed with object code 112, you'll see some quite a bit of variance between the budget and the expenditure, and that's typical this time of year. We haven't had triple checks, which are 3 times the payroll that happens in June for our certified staff and certified administrative staff. We've also had some buildup in that budget line item through our budget amendments. Then looking down at subs, this 120 sub salaries, very unusual this time of year, but we're under budget. It makes sense given the fact that we're remote learning right now. So you'll see a number of areas that reflect that. Then further down on, still on page 39, overtime salaries. This reflects some over expenditures or expenditures over budget. This is really linked to some facility rental agreements. So our facility users in the evening pay for custodial staff, and sometimes that's overtime pay. So we need to move that expenditure to the appropriate budget line item, which would be outside the general fund. We're just looking at the general fund here. Then further down, you'll see the vacation term pay and sick term pay are well within budget. Those are really because we won't see those payouts until June, much like the triple checks. Down below the salary and benefit line item, you'll see under contracted services, quite a gap between budget and expenditure. Some of these adjustments are again made in June on the elementary side for preschool expenditures, for Spark, for our copier lease. But significantly, our election didn't happen. So on the elementary, that's a budget savings of $47,000. On the high school side, similarly, there was a elections budget savings of $22,000. Continuing down, the column on the left under field trips, student travel costs. On the elementary side, the $200,000 expenditure is an error. That includes a couple of transportation routes that should be under our transportation fund. And then on the high school side, you'll see that we're well within budget, which again is not typical of this line item. This is our student transportation for athletics and activities. So that's also in real good shape, also related to our closure of the schools. I think those were the main ones I wanted to point out at this point in time. This is just a report through March. We didn't get it on the agenda for our last meeting when we looked at the quarterly reports for other funds. So just wanted to go through that. Happy to answer any questions.
Anyone have a question for Pat? If someone has a question, let me just see who it is. Trustee Decker has a question. Trustee Decker, go ahead.
Thank you. Thanks, Pat, for explaining about the field trip expenditure line item, because I was definitely going to ask about that. I was like, where the heck did they go? My other question is related, which is that the in-service travel line item is a lot higher, which, given that teachers aren't getting together in person, might seem, I'm wondering what was unexpected this year in terms of training or travel that we encountered.
Yeah, thank you. Thank you, Grace. That was one I had also highlighted. That's one that I'm looking at, because it shouldn't be, as you mentioned, we canceled quite a bit of travel. And so we'll dig deeper into that one. But right, I'm sorry I didn't pull that up. I did highlight it, but I didn't look at it before we met tonight. So I'll get you that answer.
Thanks. No worries. Just curious.
Yep.
Any other trustee questions or comments? Is this information only? Let me double check. I don't see anything. And it's information only, but any public comment? Not. Is there something, Hatton?
Nope, I'm not seeing anybody unmuted or any raised hands.
Okay, thanks. So thank you for that information, Pat. And then we move on to 3, which is to approve the renewal of the Montana Quality Education Coalition membership. And so, Pat, if you want to remind us what this organization does, and I believe MCPS has been a member of this organization since it was formed. Oh, it looks like Grace has another question first on the last topic. Is that correct, Grace?
Well, I did, although I was just gonna let it go. But I just noticed that we're significantly under in a couple of categories too, and I'm just curious about that if we have time.
Sure.
One being that we're significantly under in contracted services on the elementary side, and in both elementary and high school, we're significantly under in utilities. And since we're not looking at the last 3 months of the year here, I'm curious about what that is related to. Maybe it's a savings because our new buildings are so efficient.
Let's go with that one, Grace. No, great questions. And so the contracted services, we'll see that adjust here near this final quarter. And the reason is we make a final adjustments for our obligation to the city of Missoula for our SROs and CROs. And those are our school resource and community resource officers. We also do an adjustment for the preschool expenditures. And that's done also near the end of the year, and that's pretty significant on the elementary side. And so between those two adjustments, you're talking about over $370,000. So we'll close that gap pretty quickly with those two items on the elementary side. And then the utilities, yes. So utilities falls into that non-use category as well. And even though, so one rationale is, well, probably three. So three reasons is we typically are to the good in utilities, and that's been historical, and part of our effort is to maintain some balance or some cushion in utilities. It historically has helped in the high school balance out student activities. The other thing is with the closure, we're experiencing quite a bit of drop in utility usage. Our buildings are used all day between our use and then facility rentals, which aren't going on right now. We're just not using the energy that we typically would. And then finally, there is some attribute associated with our heating systems, and I think that we've talked, and I believe we have John Melvin, one of our contractors, working up some information regarding what that savings might look like, just related to higher efficiency heating systems. So that'll hopefully be coming down the pike soon. Did I hit them all, Grace?
I think so. Okay, thanks, Pat.
You bet.
Any other questions for Pat on the information topic? Being none, then we were moving to renewal of the Montana Quality Education Coalition, and the recommendation is that there is a motion to approve the renewal of the MQEC membership for 2020 through 2021, and the fiscal year cost is $4,000. So Pat, do you want to remind us that this is related to, I believe, the Supreme Court lawsuit at a certain point?
It is, and I wondered if we wanted to do number two. It was kind of separate from number one, even though they were both general fund reporting. The other one is.
Sorry, I missed that. Yes,
no problem.
Yeah, please. Let's do two. I apologize. I just overlooked it.
No worries. So I'll try and. There we go. So can you all see my screen? Okay.
Yes.
Okay, great. So this is a presentation that is on the website, and you'll see it under that link that's in the agenda. So you can call that up now if you wanted to. It provides primarily provides background regarding the general fund, but it does provide a little information about all budgeted funds, all 9 of our budgeted funds. And let's see. It doesn't look like okay, here we go. So I was just going to go through this real quickly. I think it's a document that the public can review, or trustees can review at their leisure. And the first few slides here talk about school funding in general and identifies our 9 budgeted funds. And you'll see from that graph at the bottom that we're delineating the relative amount of each of our 9 budgeted funds, with the general fund in the elementary for 2018 and 2019 being by far our largest fund. And I know this is review for a lot of trustees, but might be helpful for new trustees. Let's see. Apologize. It looks like I'm bouncing around a little bit. Okay. So let's see if I can jump into my screen.
Hey, Pat, I'm actually sharing the presentation for you. Do you want me to turn that off so you take over?
That'd be great. Yeah, and I can just
No
bounce
problem.
to the pages. Thank you.
Okay, you can hit share on your screen and then you're driving.
Okay. Are you seeing the screen up?
Nope, not yet.
Okay.
I'm happy to share if you want to tell me to advance to the next slide. If you
Let's
want
just
to
do that, Hatton, if you don't mind. That'd be great.
No problem. There we go.
All right, so let's just jump over to page 2 or page 3, if you don't mind. And so this reflects a pie chart showing the breakdown of the 9 budgeted funds between among all of the 9 budgeted funds for 2018 and 2019 in the elementary. The blue area is the general fund, which is in 38 million in 18 and 39 million in 2019. And you can just see relative to the other funds what the general fund looks like. Page 4, if you could jump there. Similar to the elementary, the high school graph also has a narrative describing for 18 and 19 just what those budgeted funds looked like and how they changed. Our general fund increases as a result of enrollment increases and funding changes. The debt service fund has grown just to serve the debt associated with the bond issue. Then page 5, this is a pie chart replicating similar data that was on the elementary side. And you can see just the breakdown among the budgeted funds between the general fund, the debt service, retirement, transportation fund, and so on. Page 6 and page 7 and 8 talk a bit about our tax levies and mills and that calculation. And so it's more instructive for 18 and 19 exactly what our mills did and why. And then you'll see the graph on page 7 that shows for the elementary. The blue dotted line there is our debt service fund. We actually were debt free in the elementary for really 7 years, but 5 for sure. The 2 previous years was real low. And then the spike was certainly related to our bond issues. And the green graph is tied more to our other funds, and that's more of a predictable pace, but it does go up and down depending on when we have levies fall off the table. Page 8 is a summary of a number summary. So if you get into the numbers, this is something the trustees look at when we adopt budgets in August, but it'll show for 18 and 19 just what those budgeted funds look like, the final budgets, what the levy amount was, how much the levy increased or decreased, the mill impact, and then the tax impact. And you can look at those at your leisure. And again, then on page 8, you'll see the high school graph, similar to the elementary, where we're very flat on the debt service side, the blue dotted graph for a number of years until we passed our bond issue. Very interesting, the green graph. where we're showing our mill level over time, and it's dropping, and it's because we levy a dollar amount. We don't levy based upon increase in tax value. That's different for us compared to other government agencies. So you will see our mills go down. Then page 10, similar to the elementary, you have 2 years worth of data for our budgeted funds showing the final budgets, the levies, and the mills, as well as the tax impact. Page 11, this is really my stab at simplifying the school funding and the general fund. Just trying to describe here the impact to A and B, our enrollment. But also I've got a link there you'll see that shoots you over to a FAQ piece by the Office of Public Instruction that's actually very good. And so I won't dive into that graph or this narrative, but what we talk about here is the base budget and the maximum budget and the difference between the two and how they're calculated and how they're funded. So then I'll jump from there to page 12. So here we're going to dive into a little more of the general fund, and you'll see on the elementary side, this is for 18 and 19, just on the general fund, the graph at the bottom shows in the blue where our budget increase was at, and in the yellow, how much of that increase was covered by a voted levy. And then of course we have that anomaly in 11-12 where the vote was greater than the increase in budget. Then on page 13, this is our budgetary increase in the elementary, and the line shows our A and B increase. And so you can see that our budget is reflective of our change in A and B. And that's demonstrated there with that graph that you're familiar with.
Can I just interrupt? For
Sure.
trustees or for others participating or listening to the meeting, can you explain when we use that term A and B, what it really means in terms of funding sources?
Yeah, you bet. So it stands for average number belonging, and it's really a calculation of our enrollment at two different times and averaged over those two different times with a factor applied to it. And so the significance of it is it's really linked to our enrollment. And then the other piece is that you do your enrollment count 1 year, and it dictates your budget for the following year. So the enrollment count that we performed in the fall of 19 and the spring of 2020 dictates our budgets for 2021. And those budget years start on June or July 1st. So it's an odd acronym and an odd statutory word, but it's our average enrollment is really what we're looking at for that. Thank you.
Thanks for explaining. It's a strange term.
Strange term. So then on page 14, the high school look is quite a bit different than the elementary. You can see at the bottom that graph shows our budgetary increase with the yellow representing the voted levy. And again, you had that weird deal in 2011-12 where we ran a pretty significant levy just to increase our budget, really just to maintain our budget. And the reason for that is the state law allows you to adopt a prior year budget if it's greater than your proposed budget. So we were experiencing some enrollment decline at that period of time, and that voted levy allowed us to maintain budget levels. That's further demonstrated on page 13 or 15, excuse me. You can see the blue line in the high school is taking a bit of a nosedive as compared to the elementary. And during that period of time, we were able to maintain our high school budgets with moderate growth and then some more relative growth as you see taking place beginning 2015-16, and that links up well with where our A and B is, or where our enrollment is during that period of time. Page 16 is a look at our revenue, and this is tied to the school funding formula. And if you look down the column on the left, these are the funding components and the revenue that they generate. If you go down 5 lines to base levy, and right below that over base levy, that represents the 2 local pieces of school funding. Otherwise, it's state funded, but those 2 elements are part of our local funding. Our local over base levy is the voted part, and the base levy is the non-voted part. So this is an interesting graph. We can look at it from year to year and see how our budgets are funded, whether it's leaning more on the state or more on the local taxpayer to support our general fund. Down at the bottom, you'll see the mills we levied along with the A and B. Again, our enrollment for those 2 years, and then our taxable value for those 2 years. We count A and B for 7th and 8th grade differently than for K6. It's actually a different dollar amount per A and B. It's at the high school rate, so it's a higher rate for 7th and 8th graders than at the K6 level. So that's why they're separated there. Page 17 is for 2019, so I'll jump to page 18. And this is the high school view. And you'll see on page 18 that there's a mistake at the bottom. The taxable value there listed is elementary taxable value. The high school taxable value is in the $200 million range. And so you can see among those various funding components, again, the base levy amount and the over base levy amount, just with the local support we receive and how it changes from one year to the next. Page 19, I'll jump over. That's for the 2019 budget. And then you can look at page 20 and 21. These represent the next couple pages, the budget additions and reductions for those years. These are items that the board will review as we go through and look at adopting and balancing our budget. I'm just summarizing it for those 2 years, beginning on page 20, then through 23, and I'll just skip those maybe and jump to page 24. Page 24, this is where you start getting into the expenditures of the general fund and the elementary expenditures. You'll have both 18 and 19, and these are listed by program. So you have all of the programs listed on the left. Regular programs are 100. That's part of our accounting code structure. Right below it, special ed are 281 program codes, and then fine arts 115. And this is in the elementary, and those 3 programs, as you see, make up about 96% of our expenditures. And then that's broken down. Those 3 are broken down in a little more detail in the next couple pages. There at the bottom of page 24, you can see that on a pie chart, just how the regular programs compare. In that blue area, that's your regular program expenditures, and then special education and fine arts are the 2 and 3 in the elementary side. So on page 25, using this bar chart, we'll take the regular program and then break it down by function. So on the left, those are, again, accounting code terms. Transportation is a separate function from support services, from human resources and central administration. So regular programs are broken down into those functions, and you'll see at the bottom that instruction, not surprisingly, is easily the largest expenditure function among the regular programs. and we saw that when the audit report was presented a couple of weeks ago. Jumping to page 26, let's see if I missed anything there. No. Yeah, so page 26, you'll see the general fund expenditures, again, broken down by program, with the regular program 100 being the largest, and then special education, extracurricular, and the alternative high school. And then on the last page, page 27, the regular program is broken down into those functions again, and you'll see the instruction function for the high school being, not surprisingly, again, the largest piece of the regular program expenditures. So the report will be on the website. That's the extent of it. It's a little more detail and an overview for 2 years that we've gone through, and you can kind of get to taste the flavor of how the school funding and the general fund works, and how it how these budgets are expended, and really it's a staff heavy expenditure, which isn't surprising given our business focus, and that was also presented well when Stephanie presented our audit report a couple of weeks ago. So happy to answer any questions.
So Pat, I have one just technical question. Will the error in the high school funding be corrected on the website? You had mentioned it's in the 200,000s and it didn't reflect that in the report.
Yes, thank you. We'll correct that on the report. That report will, our intent is to have a report like that that we can put in this format, and we'll correct that. Yeah, thank you.
Thanks. Any questions? I'm looking in chat to see. There's a new message. A second.
Not seeing any hands raised.
And Trustee Decker has a question, it looks like.
Oh, there it is.
Sorry. Hi. Thanks. Pat, thank you for walking us through all of that. I look forward to looking at it with a little bit more detail. It's a lot of information to try to absorb, but I really appreciate it. I think the more we can do to try to help people understand where exactly their tax dollars and community resources are going is really great. I'm all about that. I'm curious where exactly on the website we'll find it. Will there be a hot link from the main page, or will there be somewhere in particular that people should be looking for it?
Yeah, thank you. So the agenda references the site, and so there's actually 2 clicks. You got to go onto the website, and then you'll see the link on the agenda. But we'll get a hot link so it'll be easier to get to. We just didn't post this final version until after the agenda went out. So although it looks like it is a link on the agenda, so maybe we did get that out. Yeah, so on the agenda you'll see the link to the location of the report.
Thanks. Awesome.
Any other questions or comments for Pat or Superintendent Watson? I'm not seeing, let me check the other page. I'm not seeing any hands raised and no other comments in the chat box. And this is information only, but any public comment? Again, not seeing any indication of public comment. So thank you again to Pat and the business office for putting together such a detailed report. I truly look forward to looking at it in more detail, because the funding mechanism for public schools is really complicated, and we are very lucky to have you and your staff do such a good job at trying to explain it to us all.
Thank you.
And so, kind of related to that, then we will move on to 9A3, which is to renew the MCPS's membership in Montana Quality Education Coalition. And so, Pat, if you want to explain that this is a coalition that frequently lobbies to get better funding for public schools. And so.
You bet. So there's actually some excellent information that Lenora attached, and the Montana Quality Education Coalition really has been an advocate, as Chair Holland mentioned, for public schools, and has been involved on our behalf in a number of funding lawsuits that involved adequacy and equity funding. These are sort of the early 2000s funding lawsuits and into later 2008s. And then more recently, as it related to and pertained to some legislation regarding funding for private schools that's presently at this Montana or the U.S. Supreme Court. So they advocate for schools and have been very successful on our behalf, supporting inflationary increases, supporting funding consistent with the Constitution. So it's been an active group that's more active when you have litigation involved, but they're still advocating on our behalf.
Any questions from trustees? Let me double check. I don't see any hands up or any requests in the chat box. So the recommendation is that there is a motion to approve the renewal of the MQEC membership, which is in a fiscal cost of $4,000 for the 2020-21 fiscal year. Is there a motion to do so? Trustee Sturbis has moved to do so, seconded by Trustee Oldperson. Is there any board discussion? Not seeing any hands up. Any public comment? Also not seeing any requests in chat or hands up. So all trustees in favor of the motion to approve the renewal of the MQEC membership for 2020-21, please indicate by either saying yes or typing in yes.
Vogel is yes.
Thank you. And it looks like everyone has voted in favor of the motion, so it is unanimous as to all trustees present. Then we move on to a somewhat related topic, which is to approve the renewal of the Montana School Boards Association membership, which is the cost to participate is $18,682, and this would be to renew membership for the 2020-21 fiscal year. And so I don't know if that would be Pat, and I don't know if Trustee Watson wants to, or Superintendent Watson wants to weigh in as well. But
I can start, and there's also some good information starting on page 45 about the Montana School Boards Association. They are, through that organization, we participate in their unemployment insurance program and their workers' compensation program. Through those programs, they provide a number of free professional training opportunities for trustees and for district staff. They also provide legal support for our schools, for us. They provide policy support, and certainly during the closure, they were providing schools with a significant amount of advice and support. So a pretty an organization that provides a pretty wide range of variety of services for schools, and we've utilized those services pretty extensively, I'd say.
any questions for Pat? I do just want to comment that we were using their services for our strategic planning, which I hope to be able to come back to since we were making such great progress on that with such significant community involvement until we couldn't anymore. So I just wanted to say that that's an additional service that we have used that was very helpful. Seeing no other questions, then the recommendation is that there's a motion to approve the renewal of the MTSBA membership for the 2020-21 fiscal year. Trustee Decker has so moved. Let me see if there's a second. Is there a second from any? Oh, seconded by Trustee Oldperson. Is there any board discussion? Not seeing a request to make a comment. Is there any public comment? Not seeing any indications of public comment requests. All trustees in favor of the motion to approve the renewal of the MTSBA membership for 2020-21, please indicate by either typing in yes or Y or by saying yes orally.
Vogel is a yes.
Thank you. Yes, and that is unanimous as to all trustees present, it appears. And so then we have several somewhat related topics, which are 5A and B, 6. And so we'll start with 5, and I don't know if you want to talk about them separately, 5A and B, Pat, or talk about them generally since they're related. One has to do with elementary assistance and the other one has to do with high school assistance.
You bet. So these are recurring items. We're obligated to adopt resolutions as a board, or you are as a board, for requesting election assistance. And so those first two items that Chair Holland mentioned are for our resolutions directing the use of the election administrator for assistance with the elections. And then the item 6, there is the contract that we would enter into with the election administrator for their service in running our elections.
Any questions for Pat? Not seeing, let me double check. Not seeing any requests for to make or ask a question, then we'll start with 5A, which is a K-12 trustee vote, which is that the recommendation is that the trustees, that there is a motion made that the trustees adopt the attached resolution 2020- I think it's supposed to be 21, not 12, E, requesting that the county election administrator assist the MCPS elementary district in all elections held during 2020 through 2021. Is there such a, so Trustee Lorenzen has made a motion to do so. Is there a second? And Trustee Oldperson has seconded the motion. Is there any board discussion? See no indications. Is there any public comment? Not seeing any requests to make public comment. So this is a K-12 trustee vote. So all K-12 trustees in favor of the motion, please either type in yes or say yes. I don't think we have any K-12 trustees on the phone. Let me double check. And it is unanimous as to all K-12 trustees present. Then we come to B, which is adoption of resolution 2020-10S, which is requesting election assistance for 2020 to 2021, which is the parallel request for to have this resolution adopted. And the recommendation is that there's a motion for the trustees to adopt the attached resolution 2020-10S. Is there such a motion? And trustee Lorenzen, I think, has moved to do so. And is there a second to that motion? And trustee Oldperson has seconded the motion. Is there any board discussion? Seeing no indications of a request to make a comment. Is there any public comment? Seeing none, then all trustees in favor of the motion to adopt the resolution 2020 let me see if I've got the right number. 2020-10S, please indicate by typing in yes or saying yes, or why.
Vogel is yes.
Thank you. And that is unanimous as to all trustees present. And then we move on to 6, which is to authorize an agreement with the Missoula County Elections Office for the 2020-21 school elections. And so, Pat, this is related, but this is just, if you want to explain why it's a separate agenda item, it's when we have to enter into an agreement with the Missoula County Elections Office.
Yes, exactly. So it follows the resolution and is required by the election administrator, the county elections office, that we enter into the contract now. And the terms of the contract are essentially the same as they have been. So this is also an annual item that we bring to the board's attention.
Any questions for Pat? I have just one. What generally is the prevailing wage paid by the county?
You know, I'm not sure for the election judges.
Yeah.
Yeah, you know, I'm not sure. I better not guess, but I can find out.
I'm just more curious than anything. But.
Yeah.
Okay. Any other questions for Pat? Let me scoot down. Seeing no other questions, then the recommendation is that there's a motion to authorize the administration to execute the agreement that's attached on page 49 with the Missoula County's election office. Is there such a motion? Trustee Sturbis has made such a motion. Is there a second? And trustee Lorenzen has seconded the motion. Is there any board discussion? Not seeing any indications of board discussion. Any public comment? Not seeing any indications of public comment on this agenda item. So all trustees in favor of the motion to authorize the administration to execute the agreement with the Missoula County's election office, please indicate by either typing in yes or by saying yes orally.
Vogel is yes.
Thank you. Let me just. And that's unanimous as to all trustees present. And then we move on to item 7, which is a Smart Schools 2020 update. It looks like Pat and Burley, and also I'm not sure who from Haltang, is going to be jumping in on the presentation. And if Pat and Burley don't mind, just a small amount of background information on who Haltang is and what their relationship is with MCPS to explain why they're, been intimately involved in all construction projects. Or Trust Superintendent Watson, do you want to do that? Did I see you waving your hand?
I was actually saying hello to my 11th grade daughter who just came out of her room.
Oh, okay.
Oh,
So I'll let Pat and Burley
Sure.
take over.
I'll introduce it. Our bond election happened in November of 2015, and prior to the bond election, we retained Hultang to help us with construction services. And so Hultang is an engineering firm that prior to the bond election provided us with assistance following the long-range facility study. We also, through their help, we ran some IDIQs, so we'd have other professionals on board. We actually ran an RFQ for architect services, and so what they helped us do is get set up to jump out of the gate and get the projects going. And which we did, and we ran bond issues in January of 2016 and again in November of 2017. And so the fact that we ran those bond issues so close to the second one so close to our first one is really indicative of how quickly we got those projects going and how quickly we moved them along. This was an important component for us just because the faster we moved, the better the costs were. And so Hultang was instrumental in that work, and they've been our partner on these projects since the summer of 2015 or so. So it's hard to believe this much time has gone by, but we thought this would be a good time for them to talk to the board about where our projects are at as we hit the home stretch, knock on wood. And then, so we have a crew from Hultang here to present these K-5 projects up to this point. And then they'll be back to talk about the middle school next month and then the high school thereafter. So I think it'll be very interesting. And with that, I think I'll turn it over to Tyson Watson.
hey, thanks, Pat. Can everyone hear me okay?
Yes.
Okay, wonderful. I'm here with Aaron Nostrand as well. Thank you for the introduction. So we'll try to be as brief as we can, recapping about 4 years worth of bond efforts in the elementary. While I talk, I'm going to try to share our screen. We've got a PowerPoint presentation here. Hatton, maybe you could authorize me to share my screen?
I'm working on that. You should be able to, but I'm just checking your settings. I tried that for Pat a little earlier and there was nothing to set. So just hang tight one sec.
Okay, thank you.
I'm just having a little trouble because it's not finding you. Let's just do it this way. Yeah, you should be able to do what you need to do. I don't have any authorization to give you.
Okay, when I click the green share screen button, it is telling me host disabled participant screen sharing.
Okay, let me just see if I can fix that for you right now. Okay, try again.
Okay, I think we are in business.
Thanks for your patience, everyone. I can't see your screen just yet.
Okay, I'm almost there.
There we go.
Okay, so everyone sees Missoula County Public Schools. Can you recap?
Yep.
Okay, wonderful, thank you. So again, I'll try to keep this brief. Mayor and I will share slides. I know we have important graduation updates to get to. And it'll help if I go one slide at a time. Don't touch my screen, Aaron. Okay, so as most of you remember, $88 million was invested in the elementary district as part of the 2 bond issuance, as Pat mentioned. Major improvements happened to the 10 elementary schools and 3 middle schools. We'll focus on the elementary schools tonight and speak to the middle schools and the high school on another night. The four major categories of the improvements are deferred maintenance, technology, safety, and capacity. The image that you see here is an overall project schedule that we use to track and manage all of the projects throughout the last several years. This slide is a quick recap to show the square footage of renovation and new construction for each of the elementary schools. So Jeanette Rankin, 57,642 square feet. That's the new facility to replace Cold Springs. And you can see from left to right those numbers. I try to insert a few fun facts throughout the presentation to keep it from being too dry. So number one, Holting sent Burley McWilliams an estimated 65,000 emails since the bond passed. And if the average length of an email is about half a page, and assuming Burley read all of the emails, he would have read the entire 32-volume set of the Encyclopedia Britannica. So I guess that's fun. Erin, you want to speak about Chief Charlo?
Hi, everyone. Chief Charlo, obviously one of the newer elementary schools in Missoula County Public Schools. So a little less was done to this facility, but one of the objectives was to create a new defined front entry and a safe and secure new entry. So this is a couple of pictures of the new vestibule, and so this is going to be similar to what was done on all of the schools, representing a secure entrance. So there's clear lines of sight, an open entry vestibule with locked doors into the school interior, where the receptionist has control for the access to all visitors going into the school, and then obviously a locking or screened front reception window. So this was kind of a standard bunch of features that were incorporated, and you'll see pictures throughout the presentation of similar vestibule type situations. Just some additional security items that were added at Chief Charlo as well, and at the other schools, a dedicated intercom and paging system with emergency call buttons in all classrooms and areas of the school, some lockdown buttons and enhanced security systems throughout the school, and integration with the fire alarm communications system. So that was done at Chief Charlo as well as all of the schools, a pretty significant investment there.
Okay, thanks, Erin. So Franklin Elementary, this was one of the projects that we rolled out of the gate right after the bond passed. LPW Architects was the designer. Jackson Contractor Group was our GCCM on the project. General Contractor Construction Manager. Some key features for Franklin, aside from the bright colors and the new neighborhood feel, was the ample breakout space was a key driver for the design. Open commons, which means that the dining area has either great connectivity or line of sight with the gym and other common spaces. And the classrooms are all very modern and flexible with connectivity to other classrooms and good adjacencies between the grade levels. Top left is the new dining area. Through the glass there is looking into the existing gym, gymnasium, outdoor garden area, and on the right is an example of an open classroom with good connectivity to a shared classroom space. Hawthorne Elementary completed the fall of 2020. DSA Architects and Sletton was the contractor. The key features for Hawthorne is a new cafeteria and multi-purpose room, They greatly improved their ADA accessibility with a new passenger elevator to get to the second story, as well as a small lift in the gymnasium to eliminate the ramp. Safe and secure front entry, along with a new administration area, which is of course adjacent to the entry doors with oversight to the playground and the parking lot. Here is an image of the new construction that was infilled in this little courtyard. This is where the cafeteria is. There's a curtain that divides the two space, or the large space, into two spaces, and this is also used for art and other activities. Top left is the library that was opened up to improve an area for computers. Some space was added here for a little reading nook and technology area. It's tough to see, but on the left and right are little flexible spaces off of the hallway. In the center is the new entry. You can see the receptionist glass there and visitor sign-in window here. This is the view of the receptionist and admin area looking back to the right at the corridor for check-in. Top view of Hawthorne. This was a 2-story addition for 2 new classrooms for the, I believe it's the 4th and 5th grade. A view of the elevator here. An example of the new 1st grade classroom that was built out where the old front entry used to be, which is this view from the outside. Another view of the new 1st grade classroom from the inside here. Aaron, Eric, myself, Shane, and BJ back in 2016 participated in about 650 owner, architect, contractor meetings, which average about 2 hours each. So I decided to do the math, and that's the equivalent of being in an 8-hour meeting each day for 163 days in a row. So construction, like education, takes a lot of talking and discussing to get things right. So very valuable.
So this is the new Jeanette Rankin Elementary. This replaced what Cold Springs was. So the population of teachers and students moved over from Cold Springs to occupy this new building. It was a pretty amazing feat to get everybody moved kind of well into the school year. Principal and teachers were great sports, and so were the kids, excited. So this was completed in the fall of 2019, designed by A&E Architects and built by Sletton. One of the great features within the school is the learning stairs and an open commons. Again, it has a safe and secure entry like all of the other schools. The beautiful library kind of located up in the upper corner, and some really nice classroom space with breakout spaces as well. So this is a view of the learning stairs. They can use a pull-out screen there where the mouse is for presentations, and I think they use that really frequently. Up in the upper right hand is a picture of one of the breakout spaces that's located between the groups of classrooms. Kind of a corridor there going down to the 1st grade wing, just an example of what that looks like. And then in the lower right hand corner is the general music room. This is the new gymnasium. And then up in the right is the library, which faces out towards Lolo Peak, and super beautiful views from that library location. This is Lewis and Clark Elementary, which was completed in the fall of 2019. Again, kind of phased construction, so different parts of the school delivered at different times, but designed by Cushing Terrell, who was CTA Architects, and constructed by Dick Anderson Construction. One of the main goals was to create a new secure identifiable entry. This school really as well wanted to keep with their sort of mid-century modern style that the rest of the school had. One of the new features was a new cafeteria, which had great access to the outdoors. Their old cafeteria was really in the interior of their space, and a very uninviting space, difficult to get for the kids to get outside, and just kind of dark area. They did some ADA improvements, including a new elevator tower on the south end of the building so that everyone could reach both floors easily. Improved classrooms and breakout spaces, and a newly remodeled library. So let's see, the picture on the upper left is one of the new classrooms in the north area. We've got a new art classroom and a new family center down below. And then where the kind of fun furniture is located, they call that Learning Street, and that was the real significant remodel of their old cafeteria space. So they put in new skylights and really made that a showcase feature in the school. This is the new cafeteria. Behind the doors there is the new kitchen, and nice accessible hand washing station right off of the cafeteria. This is a breakout space which is used by about probably 6 to 8 classrooms that surround it. And then the new library, probably can't tell from that picture, but they put in these really nice solitudes, so they got a lot of natural light into the interior library space. And then down below is the new computer lab, which is also part of the remodeled cafeteria.
Okay, here we have Lowell Elementary. This one was cut loose right out of the gate. LPW was hired to work with MCPS to design Lowell and Franklin. Dick Anderson Construction was the builder on it. Key features include modernized classrooms, both in the existing 3-story building and the 3-story addition, flexible support rooms, new kitchen and dining, an outdoor amphitheater, and significant improvements to the existing school, both aesthetic, performance, and functional. New front entry window with secure doors, looking back at the entry, a bridge over the dining commons, lockers in a flexible space outside of classrooms. Improvements to the existing library with some little reading nooks and flexible spaces. This is the bottom left is the music room. On the bottom right is another view from the bridge looking out to the east through some huge glass roll-up doors that open up to the amphitheater and the playground. The elevator and the stairs are just north of that. Bottom right is a view of the dining area. You can see the kitchen in the background, and above, stairs and a ramp to the existing gym. Everything to the left or south of this line is the border of the existing to the new. Here's a couple slides on Paxton Elementary, completed April 2017. A&E Architects designed this school with the help of MCPS, of course, and Western Interstate was the general contractor. Again, common with the theme of breakout spaces, improved accessibility, and of course, improved HVAC and lighting. Here's their main entry and admin area. Some views of the new classrooms. 4 new classrooms were added, along with a very open hallway with some flexible space. This is a sliding door that opens up to a small, call it a small classroom. So it can be private for small groups or it can open up to large groups. So Mark Thane, Pat Burley, Karen Allen, and Julie Robitaille, selected trustees and principals and other MCPS representatives all assisted us through 14 alternative delivery contractor selections and in turn 14 architect design team selections, which took on average about 12 hours for each RFQ, which equated to about 340 hours dedicated from each individual to help select these architects and contractors, all while not slipping on your day job. So we wanted to personally thank you for all of those efforts. Oh, this one's my slide too. So Rattlesnake Elementary was completed August 2017. Paradigm was the designer and Sirius was the contractor. Very pronounced and new functional front entry. They did a new staff parking and parent drop off on the south and shifted the bus drop off to the north. We didn't mention that too much in the previous slides, but that was also a common theme to separate vehicular traffic to make the school safer. Breakout spaces were prevalent in this design. Of course, improved mechanical, electrical, and plumbing, and oversight of the playground. This slide shows vibrant colors to breakout spaces inside of the school. This is more on the north end, with the bottom left being a view into the south lower grade breakout space. Here's a closer view into that area. Top right is remodeled library space, and bottom right is looks like one of the new classrooms.
So here is Russell Elementary, which was completed in the fall of 2018. Again, designed by LPW Architects and remodeled by Dick Anderson Construction. Created a new secure entrance and administrative improvements. So new area for the teacher planning, or teacher workroom, and nurse's office and principal's office, and then this new secure vestibule with access into the school. Russell did not have a dedicated cafeteria. They used the gymnasium for eating, and so they were able to create a new addition to the school with a nice, bright cafeteria with access to the outdoors and dedicated hand washing sinks, as well as a new warming kitchen. The picture on the left shows one of their colorful breakout spaces. This is shared by 5 classrooms. Picture on the right is one of the new classrooms, which is a view from one of the pod classrooms. So 4 new classrooms were added in 2 separate pods. This isn't probably the most exciting thing to a lot of people, but I think it really shows what a lot of money was invested in, and that is upgrades to boilers and pumps and all kinds of that infrastructure that do make your buildings more comfortable and also more energy efficient. So a lot of just a lot of effort and investment in that type of mechanical equipment.
Right, so these are a few slides from Hawthorne, and Principal Sorensen out there involved her students in doing some reporting on the construction and sent some YouTube videos out periodically. So that's where I stole these images from. But that was a lot of fun for the contractors and architects and everyone involved. So with that, we'll conclude our presentation. Thank you to everyone involved throughout this process. I made a little footnote that by my estimation, almost 450,000 craft person hours were funded by the bond and spent working on the elementary school projects alone over the last 4.5 years, and with no major incidents or injuries to report. So a lot of pride and safe effort has gone into this project. I'm going to stop sharing now and turn it back over to Patton or Chairperson Holland, whoever would like to take control.
I'll jump in there. So first of all, thank you. It was great. I mean, it's great fun to get to see the buildings. We did have a chance, I think, to tour most all the buildings before we couldn't go into the buildings, and just to see them in real life and see their functionality and the improvements is just really amazing. So thank you for kind of walking at least me down memory lane for all that.
You're welcome.
So I'll throw it out. Does anyone have a question for Tyson or Burley or Pat about, you know, the K-5 improvements that have been made? I'm just checking. Anyone have any comments or questions? This is information. It's not, oh, Trustee Oldperson, thank you.
Hi, I have a comment. I just want to know, as a parent of a Russell Bear, how much the cafeteria means to the students. It's a great space, and I know my boys really enjoy it, to have that dedicated cafeteria.
Oh, that's great. And I know that the kids there really too appreciated, I didn't really mention it too much, but a lot of sod that was installed in grass play area, which replaced a lot of the old broken asphalt kind of on the north side of the building. So thrilled that they're enjoying and using that new space.
There are some written comments that are being made in chat from trustees. Does anyone else want to make a comment out loud? I will add one additional comment. When we were touring the schools, it was interesting to see how each of the school has a unique personality and is using the spaces in such valuable ways. And everything from zero waste initiatives to some of the most beautiful views to outdoor gardens to everything. It was just, you know, thanks to everyone involved, from the craftsmen and the tradesmen, the architects, the construction workers, and the contractors. And I know that the trustees all put in a lot of time helping with that selection process. And it was a fascinating journey for me personally to get to be involved in that, just to see how thoughtful everyone was in trying to make appropriate decisions. And now we get to see the results of that. So thank you so much.
Yes, you're welcome. Yeah, just to speak to your point there, and one thing that I did not mention at the start, the overarching theme was the Smart Schools 2020 manual, but each school formed an education innovation team, which consisted of custodians and teachers and parent volunteers that helped give input and define the smaller details, the color choices, or the general shape, or where the front entry wanted to be located, and all had significant amount of input while the project was being sculpted and designed. And so that's, in my opinion, the main reason why you do see those unique personalities of each school that were formed out of the ground in many cases.
Any other trustee comments? This is information only, but any public comment? I'm looking to see if I see hands being raised in any sense of the word. Not seeing any. So I will say thanks again to Aaron and Tyson for putting together this presentation. We appreciate that we get to break it down into smaller groups so that we can, you know, have be able to appreciate what happened at each level of education in MCPS. So thank you very much.
You're welcome. Thank you.
And with that, Burley, is there anything else you wanted to add other than we really want to know, did you read all the emails?
As far as you guys know.
Okay.
I read a lot of them. No, Holting has done a lot of thinking, yes, during their presentation for everybody else's effort, but Holting deserves a big thank you. This bond is successful, and a major part of that is a thank you to them. They really guided us and given us great advice and been strong leaders in getting the district where we need to be in these projects. So thank you to them.
Appreciate it, Burley.
I agree. They've been great partners and really have helped us keep our costs down and our progress moving forward. So thank you so much to everyone at Haltang. And not seeing any other comments, then we move on to another information only item, which is also of great interest, which is graduation update. So Dr. Watson?
Yes, thank you, Chair Holland. I appreciate the opportunity just to speak for a few minutes about this. I think the last time we spoke, we had talked about some restrictions from the health department. One of those being that we were required to keep crowd sizes under 250. And so we had looked at a couple of different venues, and I think probably the one message that we kept getting from our graduates and from their parents were, number one, the students really wanted to be together, if at all possible, during the ceremony. And of course, the parents wanted an opportunity to see the ceremony in person, if possible. So with that information, we explored a couple of other options. And one of the things I asked the health department to consider was the use of a larger venue so that we could separate the groups into smaller groups of 250. And I presented a plan to the health department that had the use of the Washington Grizzly Stadium. And really, if you can imagine, 3 separate areas. So you have the area on the field, which would hold about 250 graduates. And then you have the west bleachers, which would hold 250 of the guests, and the east bleachers, which would hold an additional 250 guests. And using separate parking lots and separate entrances so that the graduates and their guests could be mainly separated for the entire event. We presented that as an idea to the health department, and they agreed to let us move forward with that. So that's a change since I spoke to you last, because it will allow us to have the graduates and 2 guests at the ceremony. So each graduate will be given 2 tickets. The tickets were produced with the help of University of Montana. So it's much like a ticket that you would get if you went to an event at the university. Again, each graduate gets 2 tickets. We actually assigned the seats of the guests to the graduate. So we will know, for example, for any one graduate, we would know where their guests are sitting in the stadium. This was also of great interest to the health department. They felt like it would provide some more level of safety, because we would be able to trace where the guests were sitting in case there were a potential spread of COVID-19. Then we would be able to know essentially where the guests were sitting in the stadium and who might be sitting around them relatively close. So that was of great interest, I think, to the health department. And that also, by using the university and using their ticketing process, allowed us to do that. There will be plenty of precautions, as you can imagine, with this. So the guests will all be seated 6-foot distances between families. We're going to use every other row in the bleachers, as well as staggering the guests in the rows. So plenty of distance between family units. The graduates will be on the field with 6 feet distance between each graduate in chairs. We're limiting the overall ceremony. We're trying to cut down on the length of the speeches. so that we can have a shorter ceremony. This is one of the other requests from the health department, is to try to just limit the overall time when we have everybody there at the same time. So hopefully getting the ceremonies done in about an hour if possible. Graduates will still walk across the stage, but we won't be shaking hands or anything like that. We'll have the diplomas on a table for the students to pick up as they cross the stage. There'll be a photographer close by that will take their picture. So there's a lot of precautions going into this. One of the other things that we sent to the graduates to consider is not to travel out of state the 14 days prior to the ceremony, both the graduates and their guests. We'll also ask them to do a health screening before the ceremony, and then of course to stay home if they're sick. So those are some of the basic precautions, along with a lot of other logistics that go on in the stadium. But I guess, I guess I would say really excited that we're able to do this. We understand that this is a very special privilege for us. There's a lot of communities that are not hosting in-person ceremonies, and we feel great privilege that we've been allowed to do this. Tried to explain that to the graduates and their guests in a letter that we really need their cooperation through all of this, because it is a significant privilege for us to be able to do this. I mentioned the dates earlier, but just once again, the 4th of June for Willard in the evening. Willard has quite a lot smaller number of grads, but they're still going to only bring 2 guests. That will also take place. The Willard ceremony will also take place at Washington Grizzly Stadium. And then on June 5th, our other high schools. So Hellgate first at 9, Sentinel at noon, and Big Sky at 3 o'clock. And then just a word about Seeley Lake. Seeley Lake High School has 19 graduates participating this year in ceremonies. So they're going to use their gymnasium at Seeley, which is plenty big enough for the 19 graduates plus a few family members. The graduates are going to be sitting with their families, and there'll be 6-foot distance between families inside the gym. We'll have a ceremony there that will involve some of their traditions, and then just really shorten the whole ceremony down so that we're not together too long. But that ceremony will take place on May 31st, which is coming up this coming Sunday at 1 o'clock. The other precaution that we asked is that the graduates wear masks and their guests wear masks. And we were able actually to secure some masks. So I'll show you an example of what the masks look like. So this is, I'll show you the Sentinel one since Isaac was on the line. I think he's still on the line. So the masks will be given to all graduates. We'll ask the families to bring their own masks, or we'll have some disposable masks there for anybody that doesn't bring one. I think that's it. I mean, that's the big stuff. I wanted to just mention that really thankful to the University of Montana. They have been doing, just great helping us with this. As you can imagine, the University of Montana is also going through some furloughs, and they have quite a few of their employees that have been furloughed. And so they're kind of working with a skeleton crew, not only at the Adams Center, but also at the stadium. And they've just been above and beyond to really help us through all the logistics. So really appreciative of the University of Montana. And then also County Health Department has been giving us some great guidance and has been really flexible in looking at our plans and considering some new options. And we just really appreciate that. So we couldn't do this without the collaboration of those outside entities. And then finally, the team, the MCPS team, Hatton, Tracy, Lenora, all the central office team have just worked so hard on this and getting this ready. Really appreciate all of their work and the work of the high school principals to really get us to this point. So I think that's all I'm going to say, and just see if you have any comments or questions or considerations that you want me to be aware of before we have our ceremony. I'll show you the Hellgate one too, and the Big Sky one. I don't have the other two with me tonight, but I can bring those to the next meeting, but we have masks for all students, so pretty excited about that. Questions, comments, concerns, thoughts?
I have one question first, and then I'll check to see if others do as well. Are you going to be live streaming it at all?
Yeah.
So I know that there's, some families are disappointed that they can't have the entire family there, but it seems like there's a way that everyone can participate, even if it's more indirectly.
Yeah, I forgot to mention that too. Thank you, Trustee Holland, for mentioning that. We will live stream the ceremonies. I think we have some cooperation from external partners to do that, but we'll make sure the ceremonies are live streamed for those that can't be in attendance.
Thanks. Any questions from any trustees?
Marcia, this is Diane.
Okay, Trustee Lorenzo.
Well, I just want to thank Superintendent Watson did that for recognizing what the kids wanted and doing what the kids wanted. Because there probably were a lot of really cool things you could have done online, but that wasn't what they wanted. So I really, really respect what he's done here and appreciate how much hard work there was.
Thank you.
Any other trustee comments or questions? Just looking down. Any hands up? Trustee Olperson?
Thank you, Chair Holland. Dr. Watson, will there be programs handed out during that, or will that be something visual? How is that going to work?
Yeah, so good question. We're trying to limit the amount of things that get handed out at the ceremony, obviously for just distribution reasons and perhaps passing things on. But we included, so we sent a packet home with the graduates or with the tickets. I'm sorry, I need to misspoke there, but with each 2 guest tickets, we sent 2 programs for each graduate. We will have some programs at the ceremony, but we wanted to get the majority of the programs distributed through the graduates.
There is some information in the chat feature about what MCPS is looking into for live streaming. And then Trustee McDonald, you had a question?
Yes. Go ahead.
Yeah, I was just wondering, is there going to be masks available for the trustees, or do we provide our own?
Yep, we will have some disposable masks there. You're welcome to bring your own if you like. If we have any of the extra student masks, I might be able to get one of those for you, but we'll definitely have masks for you there if you need one.
Okay, all right, thanks.
So I thought it might be best, maybe since we have so many different ceremonies, maybe if and Trustee Holland, tell me if you want this to be this way, but maybe if the trustees were just to send me an email.
You're kind of freezing up, Dr. Watson.
Sorry about that. Can you hear me now?
Yep.
Okay. If the trustees just wanted to send me an email this evening or tomorrow morning with the ceremony that they would like to attend, then I can try to match up and see where we might have any holes. And if we've got more than 2 trustees for any one ceremony, I'll just put everybody's name in a hat and choose 2 people, if that's acceptable.
Does that work for everybody? Will everyone be able to get in touch with Dr. Watson by tomorrow? I'm not seeing any no's, so I assume that's all yeses. And so the recommendation is that you email Dr. Watson with any preferences you have about graduation ceremonies you'd like to attend. And I'm seeing yeses now, so that sounds good. So any other trustee questions or comments about graduation? I'm not seeing any hands up or requests. So any public comment? It's information only, but didn't know if anyone from the public has a comment. Ms. Ballou, do you want to just make a comment, or do you want me just to read it?
I don't know if, can you hear me? Are we good?
Yes.
Yeah, I just think for those that forget, we never have that happen, but forget their program at home, having a QR code for them to scan to get it on their phone might be a cool option to explore. Just a thought.
Thanks for that comment. I'm sure we can look into that. Any other public comment? Not seeing any. I want to echo what Trustee Lorenzen said. I know that Dr. Watson and his staff have been working on making graduation reality in a tireless fashion. I'm not sure how anyone's gotten much sleep over the course of making this happen, but I just do want to thank everyone involved for making some semblance of normalcy for all the students in MCPS who are graduating this year. So thanks to you all.
Thank you.
And with that being said, we'll move on to 9, which is to award the bid for a partial re-roof at Sealy Swan High School. So Burley, you got some bid results in for the partial re-roof.
Yeah, thanks. So we'll start seeing a few more of these kind of trickle in over the course of the summer. This is some work that we'll be doing as the bond kind of winds down, as we've kind of done some budget, as we've done our budgeting throughout the bond, whether it be through using premium interest and some unspent contingencies that we've been able to save on projects. We're kind of going back and doing some things that we had to pass on early on the project to ensure budgeting was met. And so roofing obviously is a large part of our deferred maintenance. And so we went back and looked at Sealy Lake, as that roof was at when we originally early on in 2000, maybe early 2016, right after the bond passed, we had CTA go through and assess all of our roofs and do reporting on it, which was very beneficial. It helped me identify the life left in a lot of our roofs, replacement costs, and it was perfect timing kind of with how the bond wound up. Sealy Lake had about 4 years left, and here we are with Sealy Lake remaining to need to be replaced. It says partial re-roof. Almost the entire facility will be re-roofed. The activity center, as well as the main building, will be re-roofed. And so about 90% of it will be re-roofed, including what we did on the addition to the theater there a couple years back. So this will be very big for Sealy Lake School, mainly because of the fact of the snow accumulation they have there during the wintertime, and the use of snow blowers on the membrane has really taken its toll on that roof. So this will be a large improvement for Sealy Lake.
Thanks. Any questions for Burley? I'm not seeing any questions. I have just one, Burley. There's such a range of the bids. Was that expected or unexpected?
It was a little unexpected, to be honest. Summit's a very large company, done a lot of good work for us. And so when we see numbers like that, we'll go back and we'll talk to the contractor to make sure that they saw everything in the design and the scope of the work, and that nothing was missed, to ensure when we get into the project, we're not backtracking. So they stand by their numbers, and it's the district that can benefit from that.
Yeah, yes. So any other questions? See none, then the recommendation is that there is a motion to award Summit Roofing with the partial re-roofing project at Sealy Swan High School in the amount of $185,235, subject to successful negotiations of a contract. Is there such a motion? Moved by Trustee Wake, and I'll take Trustee Lorenzen's motion as a second. Is there any board discussion? I will add one comment. I'm glad, I think in part, just by happenstance when we had Hultang here, that there have been some bond savings so that we can go back and complete some of the projects that we were being cautious about at the beginning of all the activity concerning the bond changes. So thank you for, especially you, Burley, keeping track of all that, and for Pat and everyone else involved in bond savings, so that we are able to kind of relook at some of the things that we're doing now. So thank you to you all. Any other board comment? Any public comment? Not seeing any. So all trustees in favor of the motion to award Summit Roofing with the partial re-roofing project at Sealy Swan, please indicate by either saying yes or typing in Y or yes. And all opposed, no or in.
Vogel is yes.
Thanks. Yeah, I'm sorry. It looks like we're still missing a couple of trustees. So I see it appears that it's unanimous as to all trustees present. Thank you. And now we move on to 10, which is to award a bid for a partial re-roof at Russell Elementary. So this is an elementary action item. And so Burley, it looks like this is similar to what we just discussed, but if you want to walk us through any additional details that are relevant to Russell.
Yeah, not so much Russell, but something I forgot to discuss or inform you guys about on the last agenda item was one of the things we really did. Sometimes we received bids during general construction where the bids were just a little higher than we believed they should have been, particularly in the elementary projects. And we would pull those off the projects and then manage those separate outside of the scope of the contract from the GCCM. Example I'll give you is Franklin Elementary, where we pulled that out of the project. We had about a $90,000 credit for pulling out gym roof that need to be replaced. And so we just rebid that, and it came in at $45,000. So we've been able to save some money by just bidding it ourselves and managing that project ourselves. Russell was the same way. It wasn't a large savings like that, but we saved about $10,000 by project managing that ourselves, and being able to spread that money out to other places and really get a benefit to the district. So that's kind of how we came to the Russell project.
Any questions for Burley on that particular piece of information? And so is that what you wanted to add about the partial re-roof at Russell as well? Or was that just more general information, Burley?
It was more general information and how we got to this project. Yes.
Oh, okay. Thank you. And so the recommendation is that there's a motion to award Summit Roofing with the partial re-roofing of the re-roofing project at Russell Elementary in the amount of $118,970, subject to successful negotiations of a contract. Is there a motion from an elementary trustee? Trustee Lorenzen has made such a motion. Is there a second? Old person, is there any board discussion? Is there any public comment? Seeing no indications, then all K-12 trustees in favor of the motion to award Summit Roofing with the partial re-roofing project at Russell Elementary, please indicate by typing in yes or saying yes, although I don't think any K-12 trustees are on the phone. And it looks like it's unanimous as to all K-12 trustees present. So thank you. Now we move on to B1, which is to approve the personnel report. And then there's a B2 to re-elect the re-election of tenured and non-tenured administrators. And I can't tell, it looks like there's a bit of overlap, Dave, or
Yes, so this is just kind of finishing up. So we normally do our personnel report at the first of the month. This month we just added a smaller personnel report on primarily so we can do the reelection of the tenured and non-tenured administrators, which we had not done the first board report. So it's much just like the certified. So B1 is just the personnel reports, and then B2, which is a separate motion, would be just for the reelection of the tenured and non-tenured administrators.
Okay, and so any questions for Dave? So looking at B1, the recommendation is that there's a motion to approve the items on the attached personnel report. Is there such a motion? All right. Trustee Lorenzen has made such a motion. Is there a second? And seconded by Trustee McDonald. Is there any board discussion of a general nature? We don't discuss specifics on the personnel report, but any general discussion? See no indications. Is there any public comment with the same caveat that we don't discuss any particular individuals listed in the personnel report, just general public comment? Seeing no indications, then all trustees in favor of the motion to approve the items on the personnel report that's attached to the agenda, please indicate by typing in yes or saying yes.
Vogel is yes.
Thanks. I think I've seen them all responses. So it is unanimous as to all trustees present. But then we move on to B2, which is the re-election of tenured and non-tenured administrators. And Dave, is there anything in particular you wanted to add to this topic?
No, it's the same type of motion that we had done earlier for the teachers, certified teachers, tenured and non-tenured. Administrators fall under the same statute, and so we still do approval by June 1st.
Okay, and it does look like there are some duplication, because I would be guessing that there are some positions that are funded partially with elementary funds and partially with secondary funds.
That would be correct.
Okay. Any other questions for Dave? Trustee Service has a question.
Yeah, I was just wondering, we don't have to approve like any other staff this way, do we? Is it just only certified staff and not classified at all?
Correct. Classified staff show up regularly on the personnel report for hires and resignations through our regular personnel report. But we are not required to give a specific notice the same way you would with tenure on the June 1st deadline.
And if we didn't do this, it would happen automatically, wouldn't it, too?
That's correct.
Okay, thank you.
Any other questions? Not seeing any indications of any other questions, then the recommendation is that there is a motion to re-elect the tenured and non-tenured administrators identified in the agenda attached to the attachment to the agenda. Is there such a motion? Moved by Trustee Lorenzen and seconded by Trustee McDonald. Is there any board discussion? Again, we don't comment on particular individuals, but general discussion or board comment. Any public comment? The same caveat would apply. Seeing no indications of public comment, then all trustees in favor of the motion to re-elect the tenured and non-tenured administrators identified in the attachment, please indicate by either typing in yes or saying yes.
Vogel is yes.
Thank you. And it appears it's unanimous as to all trustees present. And with that, we reached item number 10, which is public comment on any non-agenda items. So if anyone wasn't able to participate at the beginning of the meeting, but has a public comment on a non-agenda item, we provide this second opportunity for any public comment on non-agenda items. Is there any indication of public comment on non-agenda items? Whoops, let me scroll down. Oh, I'm sorry. Trustee Mercer, you had a question. I didn't catch that. Is it a question on the personnel report?
No, it's on it's off topic.
So you want to make a public comment?
I suppose so. I'm just wondering if there is a 30-second sketch of what the timeline for considering the fall is going forward. Like when we can, because people have just been asking me, like when we can expect to be thinking about those.
And thanks for that public comment. I will note that we had indicated at a prior board meeting, or perhaps even two, that there are going to be a number of topics related to what the summer and fall are going to look like in the coming board meetings. So I'm thinking you'll see that on upcoming agendas. Any other public comment on a non-agenda item? Not seeing any, then thank you all for being here. And I'll adjourn the meeting.